Feel the weight of a quiet night pressing down, the kind where the world seems to hold its breath, and the darkness wraps around you like a cloak too heavy to shed. Outside Austin, Texas, a lonely stretch of Highway 71 unfurls beneath a moonless sky, its asphalt glistening with the remnants of an evening rain, the streetlights casting frail, trembling beams that flicker like ghosts. It's just past 11 p.m., the hour when the road belongs to the weary, the late-shift stragglers aching for home. Major Vanessa Brooks steers her silver sedan through the stillness, her 42-year-old hands steady on the wheel, her fingers tapping, a soft rhythm to a blues melody humming through the speakers. She's not in uniform tonight, just a faded navy hoodie and jeans, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, her presence unassuming, a woman blending into the night. 2 hours on the road have left her tired but alert, her mind drifting between the song's mournful notes and the promise of her bed. Then a flash in her rearview mirror, red and blue lights slicing through the dark, sharp and relentless, closing in fast. Vanessa's stomach tightens, not with fear she's faced worse than this in her years with the Air Force, but with a bone-deep weariness, a knowing ache that's settled into her soul from too many nights like this. She flicks on her blinker, eases into the right lane, and guides the car onto the gravel shoulder, the crunch beneath her tires a stark counterpoint to the blues' fading wail. She shifts into park, takes a slow, deliberate breath, and rests both hands on the wheel. 10. And 2 visible safe. She's drilled this into herself, into her kids. A ritual born from survival, not paranoia. A lesson etched by a world that too often sees her skin before her story. The white patrol car pulls up behind, its lights pulsing like a heartbeat, and the officer takes his time too long, a deliberate flex of power. When he steps out, his boots scrape the wet pavement, heavy and slow, one hand on his belt, the other gripping a flashlight that flares to life as he approaches. Vanessa watches him in the side mirror, his silhouette looming, the name on his badge catching the beam, Officer Carl Hensley. He's broad-shouldered, his face shadowed under the brim of his cap, his stride carrying the weight of a man who expects the night to bend to him. "License and registration," he says, his voice flat, clipped. A command stripped of courtesy, his flashlight sweeping her car like a searchlight hunting prey. Vanessa meets his gaze in the mirror, cool, unflinching, then reaches slowly into the glove box, her movements measured, deliberate, pulling out her papers. "Was I speeding, officer?" she asks, her tone steady, a quiet anchor in the rising tide of tension. Hensley doesn't answer, his silence a wall as he snatches the documents, holding them just out of reach, his eyes raking over her sedan, clean, unremarkable, no threat. "Taillights out," he says finally, his voice a low growl, a claim she knows can't be true. She frowns, her brow creasing. "That's not right, I had it checked last month." Hensley's head tilts, his lips twitching into a smirk, his flashlight beam flicking to her face. "You arguing with me?" The question hangs, a dare wrapped in menace, and the air shifts thick, electric, a moment where power flexes its muscle. Waiting for her to flinch, Vanessa feels it, the familiar dance of authority and resistance, a script she's lived too often on bases, in briefings, in a uniform that should have shielded her but never fully did. She holds his stare, her breath, even, her voice calm but firm. "I'm just saying my taillights were fine. If there's a problem, I'll fix it." Hensley's smirk fades, his jaw tightening, and he steps closer, the flashlight's glare a blind spot in her vision. "Step out of the car," he snaps, cutting her off, his tone a whip that brooks no dissent. Vanessa exhales, slow and sharp, her eyes darting to the empty road ahead, no cars, no witnesses, just the night and this man with a badge. Her fingers tap the wheel once, a flicker of frustration, then slide to the door handle. "Mind telling me why?" she asks, her voice steady, a question rooted in rights she knows too well. Hensley's smirk returns, thin and cold. "Because I said so," he replies, his words a gauntlet thrown, a challenge she feels in her gut. The night stretches. Taut, her heartbeat a drum against the silence, and she knows this isn't about a taillight, it's about her. Feel the night tighten its grip, a cold wind whispering through the cracks of a scene poised to unravel. On the shoulder of Highway 71 outside Austin, Texas, Vanessa Brooks steps from her silver sedan, the gravel crunching beneath her sneakers, the air sharp against her navy hoodie. At 42, she stands with a soldier's poised shoulders back, head high, her dark eyes steady, as Officer Carl Hensley looms before her, his flashlight a harsh beam cutting through the darkness. The blues tune fades behind her, swallowed by the patrol car's pulsing lights, red and blue staining the wet pavement like blood on a canvas. She's asked why she's out here, why this stop has veered from routine, and his answer, "Because I said so," hangs heavy, a taunt that digs into her skin, a dare she's faced too often in a life shaped by discipline and defiance. Hensley steps back, his boots scuffing, his smirk a thin slash across his shadowed face as he sizes her up, jeans, hoodie, no flash, no fear. She feels it, the weight of his gaze, a judgment that's not about her car but her, a calculation of how far he can push before she breaks. "Turn around, hands on the car," he orders, his voice a low growl, his hand hovering near his cuffs. Vanessa hesitates, her breath a slow exhale, her mind racing military drills, legal rights, the line between compliance and capitulation. "For what reason?" she asks, her tone calm but edged, a question rooted in the steel of her training, a refusal to bend without cause. Hensley's smirk vanishes, his eyes narrowing, a flicker of annoyance sparking into something darker. "Are you resisting?" he snaps, stepping closer, his bulk a threat in the quiet night. The air crackles, a standoff teetering on the edge, and Vanessa holds her ground, her pulse quickening but her face a mask of control. "No," she says, her voice low, deliberate. "I'm asking a question." Hensley's jaw clenches, his hand darting to his radio, his voice sharp as he mutters, "Got a non-compliant driver here." Then louder, a bark meant to intimidate. "Turn around." Her heartbeat steadies, her training kicking in slow breaths, clear mind a shield against the rising tide of his power play. She knows the stakes push too hard, and this escalates, yield too quick, and he wins a game she didn't start. "Under arrest for what?" she asks, her words a quiet blade, cutting through his bluster. Hensley lunges, his hand snatching her wrist, but she steps back, fluid, just out of reach, her eyes locked on his. "For obstructing an officer." He snarls, yanking the cuffs from his belt, his patience snapping like a brittle twig. Vanessa exhales through her nose, sharp and resigned. This is his move, his trap, a game she's seen before. She could fight, could call his bluff, but the empty road stretches behind her. No witnesses, no backup, and she's not naive. With slow, deliberate grace, she turns, placing her hands on the car's cool roof, the metal grounding her as Hensley grabs her arms, wrenching them back with a force that's more than necessary. The cuffs snap tight, too tight, biting into her wrists, a deliberate jab of pain, and he shoves her toward the patrol car, his chuckle a low, smug hum. "You don't know what you're doing," she murmurs, her voice steady, a warning he doesn't heed. "Lady," he says, pushing her into the back seat, "I know exactly what I'm doing." The door slams shut, sealing her in, the hard plastic seat digging into her back, the cuffs a burning vice on her skin. Hensley struts to his car, his boots a heavy tattoo on the pavement, his flashlight swinging as he mutters into his radio, a victor savoring his spoils. Vanessa sits still, her breath even, her eyes tracing the partition's faint reflection, her face calm, unbowed, a soldier's resolve etched in every line. The patrol car lurches forward, the road unrolling beneath flashing lights, and Hensley's voice breaks the silence, smug and taunting. "Most folks just shut up when I tell them to get out," he says, his smirk audible. Vanessa's jaw tightens, her reply sharp but controlled. "And most officers don't arrest people for asking." "Why?" He laughs, a harsh bark, shaking his head. "You think you're somebody, huh?" Her lips curve, a faint defiant smile. "I don't think I know." The words catch him, a hitch in his smug rhythm, his knuckles whitening on the wheel, irritation, flaring. "Military, right?" he guesses, his tone shifting, probing. She doesn't answer, her silence a wall he can't breach. "Figured," he presses, clicking his tongue. "That above the law vibe, thought I'd back off if you flashed it, huh?" She stays quiet, letting him ramble, his words a rope tightening around his own neck. "Shame," he muses. "Could have skipped this if you'd played nice." The station looms ahead, a grey brick hulk against the night, and Vanessa's resolve hardens. She's here, cuffed but not broken, a reckoning brewing she knows he can't see. Feel the night deepen into a suffocating stillness, where the air grows thick with the weight of captivity, and the cold seeps into every corner like a living thing. Inside a squat, grey brick police station just off Highway 71 in Austin, Texas, Vanessa Brooks sits on a metal bench in a holding cell, her 42-year-old frame rigid against the unforgiving surface. The cuffs bite into her wrists, leaving red welts that throb with every subtle shift, a cruel reminder of Officer Carl Hensley's overzealous grip. The cell is a stark box, four walls of chipped concrete, a flickering bulb casting jagged shadows, the air heavy with the stale scent of sweat and old coffee. Beyond the bars, the faint hum of the station drifts in officers' murmurs, the clatter of a mug, the rustle of paperwork, a world moving on while she waits, trapped in this moment of indignity. Vanessa's navy hoodie clings to her, damp from the night's chill, her jeans a quiet defiance against the chaos that's landed her here. The drive from the highway replays in her mind, Hensley's smug chuckle, the cuffs snapping tight, his taunting, "I know exactly what I'm doing." As he shoved her into the patrol car, she'd stayed calm, her voice a steady thread through his storm. "You don't know what you're doing, and now in this cell that calm is her armor, a shield forged from years in the Air Force, from combat drills and high-stakes missions, where panic was the enemy." Her breath is slow, deliberate, a rhythm she's mastered under fire, her dark eyes tracing the bars with a clarity that cuts through the haze of exhaustion. She shifts, testing the cuffs, the pain a sharp jolt, and knows he'd tightened them on purpose, a petty flex of power she won't let break her. Footsteps echo down the hall, heavy and deliberate, a cadence she recognizes before his shadow falls. Across the bars, Hensley looms, his broad frame filling the doorway, arms crossed, that smirk still plastered on his face like a badge of victory. "Comfy?" he asks, his voice a low taunt, his hazel eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and malice. Vanessa doesn't flinch, her silence a wall he can't climb, her gaze steady as she watches him lean closer, his boots scuffing the floor. "You know," he drawls, tilting his head, "if you'd just played along, you wouldn't be here." Her lips curl into a faint, defiant smile, a spark flickering in the dark. "Oh, I'm exactly where I need to be," she says, her voice low, a quiet blade that slices through his bravado. His smirk falters, just for a heartbeat, a flicker of uncertainty breaking his mask, but he covers it fast, scoffing as he glances around the empty holding area. "No one's coming for you tonight, lady," he says, shrugging, his tone dripping with smug certainty. "Guess you've got time to rethink that attitude." Vanessa's smile widens, a subtle challenge he doesn't catch. Her eyes locked on his as he leans in, his voice dropping. "Here's the thing, folks like you think the rules don't apply, that a little sass'll get you out of anything." She lets him ramble, his words a noose tightening around his own neck, her silence a weapon he can't counter. He's blind. To it, blind to the storm she knows is brewing, the reckoning he's invited with every smug step. The hall falls quiet, his boots retreating, and then a new rhythm, lighter, hesitant. A younger officer, maybe late 20s, steps into view, his uniform crisp, a clipboard trembling in his hands. Sergeant," he says, his voice a thread of unease cutting through the stillness. Hensley turns, frowning, irritation flashing. "What?" The officer shifts, glancing at Vanessa, then back. "There's a call, you need to see this." Hensley mutters something sharp, throwing Vanessa a final glare before stomping off, his heavy tread a fading echo. She leans back, her ears catching the hushed exchange down the hall, fragments of "lawyer" higher up. "Why's she here?" And her smile fades into a steely resolve. Hensley's voice snaps back, low and furious, the younger officer stammering, and she knows the tide's turning, slow but sure. He storms back, his face a thundercloud, fists clenched, his smirk gone, replaced by a raw, unmasked fury. "What the hell did you do?" he snarls, his voice a jagged edge, his controls slipping like sand through his fingers. Vanessa leans forward, elbows on her knees, her gaze piercing through the bars. "I didn't do anything," she says, her tone calm, deliberate. "But people talk, and some of us have friends in high places." His eyes widen, A flash of dread breaking through, the realization clawing at him. He's not the hunter anymore. He spins, muttering under his breath, his boots pounding away, and Vanessa exhales, slow and steady. The cell's cold, the cuffs bite, but she's unshaken, her spirit a flame he can't douse. One night, that's all it'll take, because Hensley's world is about to crack wide open, and she's ready to watch it fall. Picture the cell's dim glow stretching into the late hours, where shadows dance on concrete walls and time drags like a heavy chain. Vanessa Brooks sits in the holding area of the Austin police station, her 42-year-old frame a study in resilience, her navy hoodie a quiet banner against the chill seeping through the metal bench. The cuffs have left angry red marks on her wrists, a dull throb pulsing beneath her skin, but her dark eyes shine with a clarity that cuts through the haze of fatigue. The station buzzes faintly beyond the bar's officers' low voices, the clink of a coffee mug, the shuffle of boots on tile, a world she's apart from, yet tethered to by this moment of unjust confinement. Her breath is steady, a soldier's rhythm honed through years of Air Force discipline, her mind replaying the night Carl Hensley's smirk, his taunts, the cuffs snapping tight, a storm she'd weathered with a calm he'd never understand. Hensley's last jab, "No one's coming for you tonight," echoes in the silence. But Vanessa's faint smile lingers, a quiet defiance born from certainty. She knows better, knows the wheels are turning. The call that rattled him, the hushed panic she'd caught in fragments. The younger officer's clipboard, his stammered, "You need to see this," had shifted the air, and Hensley's furious retreat confirmed it. Her world, her rank, her resolve were closing in, a tide he couldn't outrun. She shifts, the bench creaking, the cold metal a stark contrast to the fire in her chest. She's been here before, not in cuffs, not in a cell, but in moments where power flexed its muscle, expecting her to bend. She hadn't then, and she won't. Now her silence a shield, her patience a blade waiting to strike. The hall falls still, the station's hum a distant pulse, until heavy boots stomp back Hensley, his broad frame a storm cloud, his face flushed with a rage that's lost its swagger. "What the hell did you do?" He snarls, his voice a jagged edge, his fists clenched as he looms before the bars. Vanessa leans forward, her elbows resting on her knees, her gaze piercing through the steel. "I didn't do anything," she says, her tone low, steady, a quiet thunder that rattles his crumbling certainty. "But people talk, and some of us have friends in high places." His eyes widen, a flicker of dread breaking through his mask, the realization sinking in like a stone he's not in control anymore, not the hunter he'd fancied himself to be. He spins, his boots pounding away, his muttered curses a fading echo, and Vanessa exhales, her breath a slow release of tension, her resolve a rock he can't shatter. The night stretches on, the cell's flickering light a metronome to her thoughts. Combat missions, late-night briefings, the weight of her wings, and she knows this is nothing she can't endure. She's Major Vanessa Brooks, a woman who's faced fire and steel, who's built a career on grit and grace, and this cell, this night, is just a detour, a test she'll outlast. The station's rhythm shifts, phones ring sharper, voices grow, urgent, and she senses it, the tide turning, the threads of justice weaving tight around Hensley's smug world. Her wrists ache, her body protests, but her spirit soars unshaken, a flame burning bright in the dark. She's here, caged for now, but the dawn's coming, and with it, a reckoning he can't escape. Morning breaks over Austin, the courthouse, a looming sentinel of stone and glass, its narrow windows spilling light across polished floors. Vanessa stands near the defense table, her navy blazer crisp, her blouse a quiet elegance, her dark hair still in its tight bun, no cuffs, no cell, just a presence that fills the room. Her attorney, Clara Whitman, flips through papers with a surgeon's precision, her sharp eyes barely lifting as the courtroom fills reporters, officers, a murmur of anticipation threading through the air. Vanessa's calm is a fortress, her gaze steady as Carl Hensley strides in, his broad shoulders squared, his chin high, but a crack shows a stiffness in his step, a flicker of unease in his hazel eyes. He'd thought her just another target, a woman he could break, but now the air hums with his miscalculation. Judge Evelyn Marrow enters, her silver hair a crown of authority, her weary eyes sharpening as she settles in, her gavel a quiet promise of order. "Let's get to it," she says, her voice a gravelly sigh, peering over her glasses at the case files. The prosecutor, a lean man with slicked back hair, steps forward, his tone crisp. "Your Honor, we contend Lieutenant Colonel Vanessa Brooks was unlawfully detained without cause, and new evidence suggests a pattern of misconduct by Sergeant Carl Hensley." The room stirs, a ripple of whispers, and Hensley shifts, his jaw clenching as the judge's gaze pins him. "Sergeant Hensley," she says, "explain." He leans forward, his voice tight. "Your Honor, the defendant was uncooperative during a routine stop." The prosecutor cuts in, his voice a blade. "Uncooperative. Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, Air Force Academy grad, decorated officer, spotless record, was she a threat over a taillight?" Hensley falters, his silence a chasm, and Vanessa feels it. The tide's turned, her stand unyielding, her night in that cell a spark about to blaze. Feel the weight of justice settling over a room like a storm breaking free, where the air hums with the tension of a reckoning long overdue. In the heart of an Austin, Texas courthouse, morning light streams through narrow windows, painting the polished oak floors in streaks of gold, but the chill of the space bites deep, a cold that seeps into bones and lingers. Vanessa Brooks stands, beside the defense table, her 42-year-old presence a quiet force in a navy blazer, her blouse crisp against the chaos of the night before. The red welts on her wrists marks of Carl Hensley's cuffs pulse faintly beneath her sleeves, a silent testament to the ordeal she's endured, but her dark eyes shine with a steely resolve, her posture unbowed. Clara Whitman, her attorney, stands beside her, flipping through papers with a hawk's precision, her sharp gaze unwavering as the courtroom fills, reporters scribbling, officers shifting, a murmur of anticipation threading through the crowd. Across the aisle, Hensley sits rigid, his broad shoulders squared in a last grasp at control, his uniform a stark contrast to the unease flickering in his hazel eyes. He'd walked in with a swagger, but now, as the gallery watches, that confidence cracks a stiffness in his jaw, a twitch in his hands betraying the man who'd thought Vanessa just another target to break. Judge Evelyn Marrow takes her seat, her silver hair glinting under the fluorescent glare, her weary eyes sharpening as she adjusts her glasses, peering over the case files with a sigh that carries years of battles seen. "All right," she says, her voice a gravelly anchor cutting through the hum. "Let's get to it." The prosecutor, a lean figure with slicked back hair, steps forward, his tone crisp and unyielding. "Your Honor, we assert that Lieutenant Colonel Vanessa Brooks was unlawfully detained without probable cause, and evidence suggests a pattern of misconduct by Sergeant Carl Hensley." The room stirs, a ripple of whispers swelling as Hensley's jaw tightens, his fists clenching beneath the table. Judge Marrow's gaze pins him, her voice a quiet command. "Sergeant Hensley, explain." He leans forward, his throat bobbing, his words clipped with the defiance that's already fraying. "Your Honor, the defendant was uncooperative during a routine traffic stop, refused to comply." The prosecutor cuts in, his voice a blade slicing through the lie. "Uncooperative?" He lifts a file, his eyes flicking to Vanessa, then back. "Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, Air Force Academy graduate, decorated officer, no criminal record, no citations. Was she such a threat over a taillight that arrest was warranted?" Hensley falters, his mouth opening then closing, his silence a chasm, swallowing his defense as the gallery leans in, the weight of the question pressing down. The prosecutor presses on, flipping through papers with a surgeon's precision. An internal review of Sergeant Hensley's arrest history shows a disproportionate number of stops, targeting black drivers in this district, patterns that raise serious questions. The murmurs grow, a tide of shock and anger rippling through the room, Hensley's face darkening as the judge's brow furrows, her sigh heavy with exasperation. "Sergeant, I don't like what I'm hearing," she says, her tone a warning bell, her eyes narrowing over her glasses. "She resisted," Hensley snaps, his voice rising, a desperate grab at control, but the prosecutor raises an eyebrow, unfazed. "The body cam footage says otherwise." The room hushes, a collective breath held as Judge Marrow leans forward, her voice firm. "Let's play it." A screen descends, the lights dim, and the video flickers to life. Vanessa doesn't. Turn to watch. She's lived it, felt every second. The grainy footage unspools. Hensley's barked orders, step out of the car. Her calm questions, for what reason? His escalating aggression, the cuffs snapping tight. His smug, I know what I'm doing, as he shoves her into the patrol car. The room is a tomb when it ends. The silence a hammer blow. Every eye on Hensley as his fists clench, his face flushing red. Vanessa stands still, her breath even, her gaze fixed ahead. The truth a weapon she's wielded, without a shout. Judge Marrow leans back, steepling her fingers, her voice cutting through the hush. Sergeant Hensley, you violated protocol, conducted an unlawful arrest, and falsified your report. The charges against Lieutenant Colonel Brooks are dismissed. Her gavel falls, sharp and final, a thunderclap that shatters his world. Hensley's breath hitches, his eyes darting. A man unmoored as the gallery erupts, whispers, gasps, a tide of vindication washing over Vanessa. And I'm recommending an internal affairs investigation into your conduct, Marrow adds, her tone a blade, and Hensley's face collapses, his fists slamming the table as the reality sinks in. Vanessa exhales, slow and steady, her wrists throbbing but her spirit soaring. She's won, not just for herself, but for every shadow he's cast. She gathers her things, her gaze meeting his one last time. No triumph, no malice, just a quiet certainty, and he looks away. The weight of his ruin a chain he can't break. Picture a courthouse hallway echoing with the fallout of justice, where the polished floors reflect a man's unraveling as the world he built crumbles beneath his feet. Carl Hensley storms out of the courtroom, his 42-year-old frame taut with rage, his heavy boots pounding a frantic rhythm that reverberates through the Austin air. His uniform clings to him, sweat staining the collar, his hazel eyes wild with a fury that's lost its bite. Judge Marrow's gavel still rings in his ears. Charges dismissed, internal affairs investigation, words that have stripped his badge of its shield. The gallery's stares burn his back, reporters scribbling, officers averting their eyes, court staff whispering a tide of judgment he can't outrun. He's not the hunter now, not the man who smirked at Vanessa Brooks in the night's shadow. He's prey, caught in a trap of his own making. Sergeant Hensley! A sharp voice slices through the chaos, halting him mid-stride. He turns, his breath ragged, to face Chief Leonard Grayson, a grizzled figure with 35 years on the force, his arms crossed, his grey eyes unreadable beneath a furrowed brow. Grayson's a legend in the department, his word a law unto itself, and Hensley straightens, grasping for a shred of control. "Sir," he says, his voice tight, a plea masked as deference. Grayson nods curtly, motioning him into a private office, the door shutting with a thud that seals them in. The room is stark desk, chair, a file thick with accusation, and Grayson's tone drops cold and cutting. "What the hell were you thinking?" Hensley exhales, sharp and defensive, his fists clenching. "I was doing my job." "Your job?" Grayson scoffs, tossing the file onto the desk with a heavy slap, papers spilling like a confession. "That's not what this says, body cam. Arrest logs, lying in your report." Hensley's nostrils flare, his voice rising. "She was disrespectful. She questioned you," Grayson snaps, leaning forward, his grey eyes a storm. "That's not a crime." Hensley falters, his jaw grinding, but he pushes back, desperate. "You don't get it, people like that." "Like what?" Grayson's voice is ice, his gaze piercing, and Hensley freezes, the words dying in his throat, a truth he can't voice without sinking deeper. Grayson sighs, rubbing his forehead, his tone heavy with disgust. "The DA's digging through your last 5 years flagged for profiling. You're suspended, effective now. Internal affairs is on it, and if they find what I think they will, your career's done." The words hit like a sledgehammer, Hensley's face burning, his stomach twisting as the room tilts. "This is bullshit," he snarls, but Grayson's hand shoots up, silencing him. "Don't. Pack your desk and get a lawyer." Hensley stands, fists at his sides, his world a ruin he can't salvage, the power he'd wielded now ash in his hands. He storms out, the hallway a blur, the weight of his fall a chain dragging him down. Across town, Vanessa sits in a quiet cafe, her coffee steaming as she scrolls her phone. Headlines flash. "Officer suspended after unlawful arrest of Air Force Major." The body cam viral, her name a spark igniting debate. She's calm, her navy blazer a quiet armor, her wrists still tender but her spirit unbroken. Her phone buzzes Major General Paul Carter, her mentor, his voice a familiar rumble. "Seen the news?" "Yes, sir," she replies, her tone steady. "How you holding up?" She glances at her reflection in the window, no cracks, no defeat, just resolve. "Like I did what I had to," she says, and he chuckles, soft and proud. "I knew you'd say that. DOD's interested, might want you to speak." She exhales, her smirk faint. "Not big on headlines." "You're one now," he counters, "and this is bigger than you shows what we're up against." She nods, silent. Knowing he's right, Hensley's not the first, won't be the last. A symptom of a system she's fought within and without. "Mayor's office might call, wants to honor your grace under fire," he adds, and she laughs, wry. That's ironic. The call ends and she sips her coffee, watching a mother and son cross the street. The boy's laughter a carefree song. She fought for herself, yes, but for him too, for every black kid who deserves a world where badges don't become weapons. The victory's hers, but it's not just hers. Hensley's fall is a crack in a wall, a step toward a fight she'll never abandon. Her phone buzzes again, Clara. Hensley's done might face charges. Vanessa smiles, small but fierce, and steps into the afternoon, her stride firm, her purpose a flame that won't dim a soldier, a survivor, a voice that's only begun to rise. Picture a sunlit afternoon in Austin, Texas, where the city hums with life beneath a sky streaked with wispy clouds, the air carrying the faint tang of rain-washed earth. Vanessa Brooks steps out of a quiet cafe, her 42-year-old frame steady in a navy blazer, her dark eyes catching the light as she tucks her phone into her pocket. The red welts on her wrists fading, echoes of Carl Hensley's cuffs pulse faintly. Beneath her sleeves, a reminder of a night that tested her steel. But her stride is firm, her head high, a soldier's grace unbroken by the storm she's weathered. The headlines still buzz on her screen. Air Force Major's arrest sparks outrage, officer suspended in viral video. A fire she didn't start, but fueled with her unyielding stand, a spark now blazing beyond her control. She's not just Vanessa anymore, she's a symbol. A voice, a crack in a wall too long unyielding. Across town, Hensley's world lies in ruins, his suspension a guillotine that severed his badge's power, his career a pile of ash under internal affairs. Looming gaze. The courthouse's echo, charges dismissed. Investigation recommended still rings in his ears. Judge Marrow's gavel a thunderclap that shattered his smug fortress. He'd stormed out, his boots pounding the polished halls. "Chief." Grayson's words, "Your career's over," a noose tightening around his neck. He'd thought Vanessa just another target, a black woman he could bend with a smirk and a cuff. But her calm, her resolve, her quiet, "I know who I am," had undone him, a truth he couldn't bully into silence. Now reporters circle. His name a stain on the evening news. His power a ghost he can't reclaim, a fall he never saw coming, carved by his own hands. Vanessa pauses by a streetlight, watching a father and daughter cross the road, the girls. Laughter a bright thread in the afternoon's weave. She fought for herself that night on Highway 71, her rights, her dignity, but it's for them too, for every black child who deserves a world where badges don't turn to blades. The cafe's coffee lingers on her tongue, warm and grounding, as Major General Carter's words echo, "This is bigger than you," a truth she feels in her bones. She'd stood firm, her voice steady through Hensley's taunts, her wrists cuffed, but her spirit free. A soldier's resilience turning a roadside stop into a courtroom triumph. The viral video, her calm defiance, has lit a fuse activists rally, forums buzz, a city stirred by a woman who wouldn't bow. Her phone buzzes again. Clara Whitman, her attorney, her voice crisp through the line. "Hensley's done might face charges. IA's digging deep." Vanessa's lips curve, a small, fierce smile breaking through the weight. "Good," she says, her tone a quiet thunder, a justice she's earned not just for herself, but for the unseen, the unheard. Another call follows Carter, his rumble warm with pride. "Mayor's office wants to honor your professionalism under fire." She smirks, wry and soft. "That's irony for you." You're a headline now, he presses, and this matters shows what we're up against. She nods to the empty street, her breath a steady exhale. It's not the first time, and won't be the last, but it's a start. He chuckles, knowing her steel. Damn right it is. The father and daughter vanish around a corner, the girl's laughter fading, and Vanessa's gaze lingers, her heart swelling with a purpose that's always been there through Air Force missions, through late-night drills, through a life where she's had to prove her worth again and again. She didn't back down, not when Hensley's flashlight blinded her, not when his cuffs bit her skin, not when he smirked through the bars. She'd stayed steady, her training a shield, her rights a sword, and now his fall is a crack in the system. Too long unchecked a crack she's widened, a step toward a fight she'll never abandon. The mayor's call can wait. The spotlight's glare doesn't fit her quiet fire. She's not here for medals. She's here for the kids like that girl. For a world where they won't need to know this script. She walks on, the cafe's hum fading behind her, the city unfolding in a sprawl of life cars rolling, voices rising, a rhythm she's part of but stands apart from. Hensley's ruin is a lesson power. Unchecked is power abused. And he'd thought her a shadow to crush, not a force to reckon with. But Vanessa's victory is more a spark for the silenced, a call to the weary, a truth that echoes beyond the courtroom's walls. She's Major Vanessa Brooks, a soldier who turned a night's injustice into a dawn's promise, her steps firm, her eyes on a horizon where every soul might stand seen, unbroken, free. The fight's not over, it never will be, but today, she's carved a path, a legacy of courage that won't fade with the setting sun.